Linda Cardellini, you play Meg Rayburn in Bloodline. Now, season 1 of the show laid the groundwork for all the drama with the Rayburn family, including the murder of Danny Rayburn. And now season 2 deals with the consequences of that. And after such a dramatic end to the first season, what were your thoughts when you read the first new scripts of season 2?
I was dying to know where we would start off. I knew that I would be in New York because I didn't shoot those episodes until later, until we went on location. So I was sort of the latest one to show up as the season began and everybody started shooting season 2. But when I went to go shoot those scenes in New York, it was so much fun because for the first time in the series, it sort of was, I got to do all my stuff in succession, and do it all in a row and be there and sort of play Meg's storyline from beginning to end, at least for New York stuff. So that was what was fun about that. But I didn't get to start at the same time as everybody else.
Eventually, of course, Meg comes back into the Key West family fold as the season progresses. What was it like to come back after doing your work in New York?
It was great. It was great. I mean, I went and I shot, I think, episode 3 before we went to New York. So I had done some shooting in the Keys first with everybody, and then we went back and shot the New York stuff. So, but it's really great. It's such a great group of people. I mean, it's such an incredible group of actors, and we're sort of out there, literally on an island, connected by a long freeway. But we're out there all together, and it's such a great group of people to work with. So I was happy to see everybody again. And we got to go in winter this time, which the weather is a lot more comfortable. So that was really nice. And I think it changes the look of the show this season too. I think it is a little bit grayer. We're a little bit, there's more wind. It's a little bit colder, and I think it's kind of, there are very subtle season changes in the Florida Keys, but there is definitely something that switches in season 2.
I'm not an actor, but I'm not a fan of too much heat and humidity, so that would have.
You get used to it. You convince yourself, it is good. I think it's good for your skin. I don't know.
Now, in season 1, Meg was trying to do good for the most part, but she started taking darker turns in season 2 as she deals with her own guilt. What were your feelings about taking Meg down some of those darker paths?
Oh, I loved it. I loved that you got to explore more of Meg in season 2. And I think that she changes the most of the siblings from season 1 to 2. I think we all sort of spiral out of control. But she managed to she's a very different personality than John and Kevin. And she manages to sort of use her logic and compartmentalize in a way that in season 2, she becomes a much darker person in general. Kevin spirals sort of out of control, and John, of course, he's getting increasingly more intense and withdrawn. But I think that Meg sort of, she learned from her mom to put on a hostess face. They're a private family in a public place, and they have 2 faces. They have their public face and their private face. And I think that Meg, like her mother, like Sissy plays it, when she's at the inn, you wouldn't be able to know that terrible things have just happened. And I think that's something that Meg grew up accustomed to doing. So she finds a way to put certain things, even though she's falling apart, she finds a way to carry on and to do the duties that she has to do. And that's sort of the lawyer part of her. So it was fun to have both of those things happening. And then when she gets drunk, the several times that she gets drunk this season, I think it's a way for her to sort of escape. And that was really fun to play too, because where that leads for somebody who's always in a dark spot is interesting.
And you mentioned, the matriarch of the family, of course, played by Sissy Spacek. And throughout the season, I just kept thinking, this poor woman, the only conversation she has with her children are her children creatively not telling her things.
Right. Yeah, it's a very lonely existence, I think, for everybody, but especially probably her. She loses her husband and her son in a short period of time, and there seem to be no explanations really for either of them happening so suddenly for her. And I think that along with that, the family's imploding, and I think it's just everybody's relationships are very fractured. And I love the relationship that Meg has with her mother, and I, of course, love and adore and admire Sissy so much. And so to be able to play those scenes with her where there is this great distance and also this great love is very, very fun.
As you mentioned, John, the John Rayburn character got really intense in season 2, and
yes, I don't know that will ever let up.
But it's so impactful to me, at least, because having Kyle Chandler in the role, we're so used to to the TV audience. A lot of TV audiences are so used to him seeing him as stand-up guys and like fights and
everybody loves Kyle Chandler. Every time people talk about this, they say, I love Kyle Chandler. Man, woman, child, it doesn't matter. People just love him, which I think works so perfectly for the show because it's so against what you think he's going to do. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
I was just going to ask, what's it like to play opposite him when he's sort of playing so far against type like that?
It's great. I mean, he's a great actor and a really, it's fun, and he and I, for the first, I think, season and a half, we rely on each other a lot. And I think that the breakdown of their relationship is a huge problem for Meg, because that was the last person that she had that she thought she could trust, and there's so much riding on the fact that they trust each other, the siblings. And I don't think that Meg relies on Kevin as much, even though emotionally she loves him. I think everybody's used to sort of caretaking him a little bit. But for her and John, I think that they're each other's touchstone. And when she finds out that she can't truly trust him, there's that moment where I slap his face. And I think that is a huge indication of what's happened to her in her life. I don't think Meg doesn't really act out in that way. And so when she does that, after he asks her to come back home, she knows she can't refuse him. And that moment defines her life, much like answering the phone call when he was on the beach and helping him. That moment defined her life. And there are all these moments that John comes to her and she does what she thinks is helping him. And in turn, it sort of seals her fate, dooms her.
It's interesting that one of the major conflicts that comes up in season 2 is that of course John is the one who actually did kill Danny, but Meg and Kevin ended up involved in the cover-up, and so they don't necessarily see themselves as culpable in the same way, and that causes tension. Do you think they're right that they're not as much to blame, or are they really just kidding themselves?
Oh, I think it's a little bit of both. I think the characters. I think Meg definitely feels like what she did was helping him. I don't think that, there's no other way that in her mind she would have been involved had she not answered that phone and thought she was helping her brother, which is, very interesting, the sort of question of who is your brother's are you your brother's keeper? And I think that keeps traveling down the line. And I feel like that's something that Kyle, and John's character feels slighted because he had to always take care of Danny. And I feel like my character has to deal with the fact that here's somebody who never thinks that anybody is helping him, and I've gone out of my way to truly help him, and it only damns me further. And he doesn't seem to appreciate that at all at this point. And I think they're all sort of struggling to survive. I mean, if one falls, they all fall. And so to separate seems probably like a good idea at the time, but that may make things worse. I don't know. But I think that it's an interesting idea, and I think that for Meg, I think the road to hell is paved with good intentions is sort of what I say about her. And I think she has good intentions, and she wants to help, and she wants to be dedicated to her family, and she wants to do her right, do right by everybody. And you, by doing that, can do right by nobody.
Meg also takes a turn for the political in season 2. She,
yes.
She runs John's campaign for sheriff, which for some reason he decides this is a good time to run for sheriff.
Yeah, she tries to talk him out of it, but I think their logic is very skewed at this point. I think when you are desperate, which I think is interesting about the show, is what people do when they're pushed beyond their limits, and what desperate people do in desperate times, and how it makes you behave in a way that you wouldn't predict that you would behave. It's the sort of thing of if the building's burning, what your reaction is, and do you help people, or do you fend for yourself? And I think nobody really knows until they're actually in that situation, what instinct takes over. And I think these people are finding out that they're really not at all the people that they thought they were in looking at the people around them and in looking at themselves.
Part of that political storyline brings in Beau Bridges as
Yeah.
this shady character who sort of comes into the family and the political campaign, and you're working some with him in this past season. What was it like having him join the cast this season?
Oh, it was great. It really was. He, knowing him and knowing his work, he has such an honest quality about him and a likability about him. And the idea that he's not what he seems then becomes even more fun. And I think the two of them actually really get along, even though she doesn't really trust him in a lot of ways. I think that there is something that he brings to Meg's character that makes her believe that she can do things that she probably otherwise is not so sure that she can do. And even though he questions her at the top of the campaign managing, by the end of that scene, he's liking what he sees, or so she thinks. So I think that there's a connection that happens between the two of them. And I think something that's interesting for my character, with shown through his character, is that she might actually be good at politics, which is kind of an interesting commentary on politics.
Yeah, and he's not the only new addition to the cast in season 2. There was also John Leguizamo and Andrea Riceborough playing new people from Danny's past. What did you think about those characters and playing opposite those actors when you got to work with them during the season?
Oh, they're both they're such great actors, and being able to play opposite both of them, I was excited. I was hoping that Meg would find a way to be in with either of them, and she gets to be in with both of them. So it's exciting. I think there's an element of danger and antagonism that they bring that is it's very subtle in some ways, and then at times between John Leguizamo and myself, it becomes very overt, but it also changes her. So the way that all these new people come into the family, really, it really serves to change us as characters, and I think that's really fun.
I'd like to discuss, at least one major spoiler from the end of the season. So I just want to give advance warning to anyone who will be watching this that they should pause right now, watch the season, right, and then pick up here. So right here. Okay, so in the second season finale, where it goes is Kevin is about to confess everything to Marco, who is a detective and Meg's ex-boyfriend, then ends up bludgeoning him to death instead. What did you think of that twist when you first read it?
It was a shocker. We did not know who was going to go, and we didn't know where there was rumblings that somebody was not going to survive, and we didn't know how it was going to happen. And on one hand, it's very exciting dramatically in the script because it's so shocking, and on the other hand, as family and community and working together, there's a party that is grieving because everybody loves Enrique, and especially for Meg and Marco, they have such a strong relationship that the idea of that loss, in terms of showing up on set every day and not having people to work with, that was hard on me because I loved that relationship so much. But then again, it's Bloodline, so nobody they can always come back, so you never know.
Yeah, that's true. Of course, we saw Danny coming back this season in flashbacks and certain dream sequences. You didn't. I don't think you had any scenes with him past or in fantasy, but
no, I wanted them, but there was that he wasn't appearing to Meg, not yet, anyway.
Did you get to spend any time with him on set though? Were you around?
Oh yeah. I mean, the keys when we're there, we're all there together, and so it's fun. And I remember it's just everybody sat together and had a big lunch. There was like 15 of us, and we sat together, and it's great. It really feels like family when you're there. You're out sort of in the middle of the ocean together. So anytime anybody comes back, it's sort of a party. And he's great. Ben is amazing. He's so much fun. I was so happy that he was back.
It'll be really interesting given Meg's relationship to Marco and her complex, to say the least, relationship with Kevin and John, and it'll be very exciting to see the kinds of scenes you might have with Norbert Leo Butz, who plays Kevin.
I know.
Dealing with the aftermath of that.
Great too. He has such crazy stuff to do this year. But yeah, I'm also looking forward to how it turns out when whatever it is I say to Sally, whatever that next sentence is, I'm very excited to see where that leads. If anybody actually tells the truth. I just always think it's a fun experiment to see when they are telling the truth and when they are not. And I think they choose to lie about things that they don't even have to lie about. So it's always fascinating to me what they choose to tell the truth about. The Rayburns.
I think it'll be interesting if if I were pitching the writers, I would say like we should have Sally, Meg just tells Sally everything just at this moment where it's getting completely worse, and then like I'd love to see how Sally reacts. Does she go, does she turn against her family for killing Danny, or does she she sort of become the bolster that sort of tries to gets a little her own hands dirty trying to keep her remaining family intact.
Right. I think that's what I think is fascinating, is how many children can she actually bear to lose, and if what she does with that information, if she ever learns the information, I think that's a really fascinating thing. I hope they address that if there's a season 3.
In addition to Bloodline this year, you're also appearing in the film The Founder, which is about the building of the McDonald's empire. It's directed by John Lee Hancock, who made The Blind Side and Saving Mr. Banks. What can you tell us about that film and the role you play in it?
I played Joan Kroc, who's Ray Kroc's wife, his last wife, and they loved each other very much by all accounts. But I think she's his third wife. And the story is about Ray Kroc, who claimed to be the founder of McDonald's, but there were actually McDonald's brothers who started almost fast food as we know it, and the idea of small business versus big business, and Kroc coming in and franchising it, and what that meant to the McDonald's brothers, and what the true story of seeing a McDonald's on almost every corner what is.
John Lee Hancock, of course, with The Blind Side, had some award success with that, and this film stars Michael Keaton, who of course has been in Spotlight and Birdman in recent years.
One of my all-time favorites too. I was so excited to work with him.
So what are your thoughts about, you never know, I mean, knock on wood, but if this should end up in sort of the awards conversation at the end of the year?
Oh, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. That's always amazing. It's always it's just, it's always lightning in a bottle. So we'll see. But the people who have worked on the film are just incredible. I was so happy to be there and to be part of it. And Joan Kroc is blonde, so I'll look very different, very different. But it was really, really a fun experience. It's an incredible time period that they're in, and that the movie takes place. And the story, I think, is one of those stories that you think but you don't actually know all the details of it. And when you learn it, it becomes something that you can't stop thinking about. So to me, that's exciting. And hopefully people will love and respond to the movie. You never know.
Fingers crossed for that one.
Yeah.
You've also continued to do a lot of voice work recently for animated shows, including, regular show, Gravity Falls, Sanjay and Craig. You've done a lot of voice work. Gravity Falls, ended recently. What was it like?
Yeah. I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
What was it like saying goodbye to that show?
It really was, it's in some ways it's very sad, and in other ways it's very exciting, because it went out while people still really, really love it. And that's always kind of a good thing. I mean, that's what happened with Freaks and Geeks too. So it's nice to have something sort of encapsulated in a way that that the creator, Alex Hirsch, really wanted Gravity Falls to end however he wanted it to end, and he got to do that. So I think that's exciting about it. Well, it's sad to say goodbye, and I think it probably, it could have gone on for longer in some ways. I think that it's really great to end on a high, leave the party before it gets bad.
Does voice acting in general have a unique kind of appeal to you, or does it feel like most other acting?
It feels different. It feels different. I always say that I didn't realize how much I relied on my face to emote until I started doing voice work, and you realize that things are, you know, are caught or not caught based on your voice. So it's been a good learning experience for me in terms of acting, and it's also fun to just stretch your muscles in different ways. It was something that I always thought about doing and have been able to do more and more of, which is, you know, it's great because you can also work on other things while, you know, while I'm shooting Bloodline, I can go and on, you know, my day off, you know, work on a on a silly cartoon, you know, and do all kinds of voices and do all kinds of different things. So it's pretty fun.
Well, I want to congratulate you again on Bloodline and on the Founder coming up and on all your great animated work, and best of luck on everything else going forward. Thanks so much for talking to me today.
Thank you for talking to me, and I appreciate it.